Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA AS Psychology 2016 Paper 1 Exemplar Answers for Memory, which you need to know for AQA A-Level Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. In AS there are 12 mark questions, instead of 16 mark questions. For the purpose of this video and to avoid confusion for A-Level, the 12 mark questions have been turned into 16 mark questions. Question 1. Outline what psychological research has shown about short-term memory according to the multi-store model of memory. 4 marks. Information that is attended to is passed to STM where it is temporarily stored. Information in our STM arrives in a raw form, sound or vision. It is then encoded into a form that STM can more easily deal with. Information can be coded visually, eyesight, and semantically, meaning, but is mainly coded acoustically, hearing, Baddeley 1966. Information is still vulnerable to being forgotten due to limited duration, decay, or being displaced by new incoming information due to limited capacity, displacement, and therefore a rehearsal loop can be undertaken to keep the memory trace active by continually reinserting it into the STM rehearsal loop, repeating the information over and over again in your head. STM has a limited capacity of 7+/-2 chunks of information meaning 5 to 9 items. Miller, 1956 plus Jacobs, 1887. STM has a limited duration of approximately 20 to 30 seconds after which the memory decays. Peterson and Peterson, 1959. Annie can still skateboard even though she hasn't skated for many years. Jermaine can still recall what happened on his first day at university even though it was ages ago. Billy remembers the names of the tools he needs to repair the broken tap. Question 2. Identify 3 types of long-term memory and explain how each type is shown in one of the examples above. 6 marks. Annie's case how to skateboard is an example of procedural memory because she is remembering an action or muscle-based memory. Jermaine's case what happened is an example of episodic memory or autobiographical memory because he recalls the events that took place at a specific point in time. Billy's case the names of tools is an example of semantic memory because he remembers factual and meaningful information. Question 3. Below are 5 evaluative statements about the cognitive interview. Which 2 statements are correct? Shade 2 boxes only. 2 marks. The cognitive interview. A can only be used in Western cultures. B takes longer than the standard interview. C involves unethical treatment of witnesses. D requires special training of police officers. E cannot be used to interview children. B takes longer than the standard interview. D requires special training of police officers. Question 4. Discuss what psychological research has shown about working memory. In your answer, refer to theory and/or evidence. 16 marks. Baddeley and Hitch, 1974, proposed the working memory model, WMM, to account for some of the limitations of the multistore model. They suggested that short-term memory, STM, is an active process used when temporarily storing and manipulating information and consists of multiple stores, not just one unitary store like the MSM suggests. The model consists of 4 components, each of which is qualitatively different especially in terms of coding and capacity. The central executive, CE, controls the WMM and coordinates the other slave systems after reviewing information from the sensory register. It is used when dealing with any task that makes cognitive demands and has a limited capacity and can process any modality of information, modality-free. It monitors incoming data, making decisions as to what information is important and needs attention. It then allocates the information to one of the three slave systems: visuospatial sketchpad, phonological loop, episodic buffer. The phonological loop, PL, processes auditory, speech-based information and preserves the order in which the information arrives. It is divided into phonological store, which holds words that are heard, and the articulatory control process, which allows for the maintenance and rehearsal of acoustic information, e.g. repeating sounds or words in a loop to keep them in the working memory while they are needed. The capacity is thought to be 2 seconds worth of what is said. Confusions often occur with similar sounding words as the coding is acoustic. The visuospatial sketchpad, versus, processes visual information through the senses or visual long-term memory, patterns of recognition and spatial information consisting of the relationship between things and perception of movement. It is divided into visual cache, which stores visual material on color and form, and the inner scribe, which deals with spatial relationships, rehearsal and the transfer of information from the visual cache to the central executive. The capacity is limited and, according to Baddeley, 2003, is about 3 to 4 seconds. The episodic buffer was added to the WMM in 2000 as a temporary store for information. It is used to aid CE when it becomes overwhelmed, integrating the visual, spatial and verbal information processes by other stores and maintaining a sense of time sequencing, basically recording events, episodes that are happening. It can be seen as the storage component of the CE capacity is limited of about 4 chunks, Baddeley 2012. The VSS, PL and episodic buffer then transfer information to the long-term memory. A strength of the WMM is that it is supported by case study research. Challis and Warrington, 1970, carried out a case study of patient KF, who was injured in a motorcycle accident. Following his accident, KF could recall stored information from his LTM, however KF had a severely impaired STM, particularly for verbal, acoustic, information, when KF read digits himself, compared to visual information, when someone else read digits to KF, suggesting selective impairment and indicating that different types of information may be processed and stored differently within STM. This is a strength because it suggests that the working memory model can account for variations in memory performance based on the type of information being processed. The selective impairment observed in KF indicates that short-term memory is not a single store but consists of different components that handle verbal and visual information differently. This supports the idea that memory is more complex than previously thought and that different modalities may operate independently within the short-term memory system. A limitation of the WMM is that the theory suffers from experimental reductionism. The WMM attempts to examine complex behavior by relying on isolated variables operationalized in laboratory experiments. Furthermore, the WMM adopts a nomothetic approach since it attempts to generate universal laws regarding how STM processes information, based on dual task studies conducted under laboratory conditions. Using an ideographic approach, such as was used by Oliver Sacks with Clive Waring, Sacks, 2007, and Brenda Milner with H.M. Milner, 1957, can shed light on how STM loss can vary between people. This is a limitation because it suggests that the working memory model may oversimplify the complexities of human memory by focusing on controlled, isolated variables rather than considering the individual differences and contextual factors that can influence memory performance. By relying heavily on laboratory studies, the working memory model may not fully capture the nuances of memory in real-world situations, making it less applicable to understanding how memory functions in everyday life. A strength of the WMM is that there is support for the visual spatial sketchpad from dual task studies. Baddeley et al., 1975, found that participants had more difficulty being two visual tasks, tracking a light and describing the letter F, than doing a verbal and verbal task at the same time. The greater difficulty is because both visual tasks compete for the same limited resources. When doing a verbal task simultaneously, there is no competition. Baddeley and Hitch, 1976, found that when two tasks require the participants to use their phonological loop, their ability to perform the task is impaired. However, when one task requires that participant to simultaneously use their phonological loop, remembering a series of numbers, and the other requires their visuospatial sketchpad, copying a drawing, then that performance is not impaired. Therefore, dual task performance activity provides evidence for the existence of the visuospatial sketchpad. The MSM can't explain this. This is a strength because it suggests that the working memory model provides a more nuanced understanding of memory processes by demonstrating that different components, like the visuospatial sketchpad and phonological loop, can operate independently. This indicates that cognitive tasks can be managed more efficiently when they do not compete for the same resources, highlighting the model's ability to explain variations in cognitive performance that the multistore model cannot. A limitation of the WMM is that the central executive, CE, is of a vague and untestable nature. The CE is often described in broad terms, such as attention, without clear delineation of its specific components or mechanisms. This lack of specificity makes it challenging for researchers to design precise and targeted experiments that can accurately assess the functions of the CE. Furthermore, there is case study research to suggest that it is not just a unitary store. Esslinger, 1985, conducted a case study on patient EVR, who had a cerebral tumor removed. While he performed well on reasoning tasks suggesting his CE was functional, he struggled with poor decision-making skills suggesting some elements of his CE was partly damaged. This is a limitation because it suggests that the central executive may not operate as a singular entity, but rather consists of multiple components that can function independently. This complexity makes it challenging to fully understand and assess the central executive's role within the working memory model, as evidenced by the case study of patient EVR, which indicates that different aspects of the CE can be affected by neurological damage. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.